Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Should we do a Goose tune? What do you think? Should we do a Goose tune? Should we do Redbird? Should we do Redbird by Goose? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah. Who's a good boy? Let's do it. All right, happy Goosemas, everybody. Though I am a homegrown Rhode Islander, I live in New Hampshire now, and I will not be in Providence for the shows this weekend. But if you are able to be there, have so much fun. And in the honor of Goosemas cheer and spirit, we are going to do Redbird, which I've had a ton of requests for. And we're gonna really quickly get the main riff out of the way so that if you're, just want to be able to sit down at a piano and impress your fellow Goose fans, we'll cover that. And then we're going to dive into one from last year. I think it's from September of 24. That's one of the first hits on YouTube when you search for it. And we're going to get into that big old jam. It's like a 20-minute one. So we should be able to make pretty quick work of this first piece of it. And start out by saying that it's in C minor. Well, that's the main riff, and so we'll talk about that piano sound in a second, but first off, C minor. So it's a C minor chord with, C octave with my left hand here, and then my right hand has G on the bottom, so it's sort of like a second inversion C minor. G, C, and E flat. That's like your first chord, and then you hit the D twice for the riff, and you should be able to get a feel for this. Peter varies it a little bit, so there isn't like a 100% exact way to do it, but we're gonna get the vibe. So we hit that C minor chord, then D, and then you're gonna lay out this E flat major chord. So I have E flat with my left hand, and then B flat on the bottom with my right, and then a E flat and a G. So let's go over that move again. So I'm gonna hit that C minor chord. You see that? So C, and the order I'm hitting those in my right hand is like C, G, E flat, and then I'm gonna hit the D, E flat, B flat, G, and then we're gonna do a very similar pattern to go up to the next chord. We're gonna hit A, so that's A, and then we're gonna do a G minor chord. And I'm gonna go, so it's G with my left hand, and then D on the bottom, G and B flat with my right. And in that same kind of order that you hit them in, so it's G, D, B flat, and then that B flat comes up to C, and then we're going to an F chords. F with my left hand, and then F, A, C with my right. And then the lead back into the riff is E flat, D, C. So you see that whole riff, and it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So again, the skeleton of it, the chords of it are C minor, E flat major, G minor, and F. And then it's just getting between them. So let me play it again for you so you can watch it. So we're gonna do that C minor chord, then that D to lead it into the next chord. So E flat major chord, and then we're gonna use the A to lead into the G minor chord. And then that B flat pops up to C. And then you're gonna do that F chord. And on that F chord, you may have noticed I'm rolling the G up to the A, and that's just a little touch. And then the E flat and the D to come back into it. And here's that little roll. Hear that? Peter does that a lot. It's also a super Page McConnellism to like. So that's it for the main riff. If that's all you came for, you can get out now. You can sit at a piano and. And it's super satisfying. You can, totally impress your friends with that. We're going to talk about the rest of the song. And we're also going to talk about what this sound is. So Peter has a custom, I believe it's a Vintage Vibe brand electric piano, and electric pianos are incredibly cool instruments. Going back to the old Wurlitzer and Rhodes pianos that were around a lot in the 60s and 70s. And it's this really, for the era, a very compact piano mechanism, but of course the things are super heavy and very fussy. I used to gig with an 88-key Rhodes stage piano. It sounded amazing, but it had, that note would go woo while I was playing it, and the sustain pedal would get jammed up inside of it, and it also weighed like 120 pounds when it was like all packed up and together with the legs and the amp and everything. So that was, I learned, now that the digital stuff has gotten better, I just did always gig with a digital keyboard or two, because the sounds have really gotten amazing. But so Peter's is a Vintage Vibe. It's a custom-made modern version of that, and it's, has these keys with mechanisms inside that use hammers to hit these metal tines that make a sound kind of like the way an electric guitar makes a sound, with a vibration that has a pickup and creates an electrical signal that makes the sound. And it's this really lovely, lush. This one's a little thin, and I'm never able to get it quite exactly where I want it, but it's a nice sound. Peter's sounds phenomenal, but if you have a CP88, then we're going to talk exactly how to make it. If you have a Nord Electro or something simpler or whatever, you can at least get in the ballpark. And we're going to talk about the root patch that I'm using and what the effects on it are, because Peter uses a very distinctive kind of sound with this. So I'm using a Rhodes piano, and the CP88 has a bunch of different samples, and I just tried them all. That one's actually really nice. Maybe we'll go with that one, but they're all like slightly different as I change them here. And I liked this one, but I'm going to go back to number one, because I was just really digging that one. So that is Rhodes sample number one. Depending on your keyboard, you may only have one Rhodes sound to work with. You may have a few. I have the tone dialed a little bit up, but I don't want it to get too sort of high frequency, so I want to sort of live in that lower mid-range. And then I have some overdrive on it, not a ton, because it gets kind of harsh as you get up there. So I have this really nice sound. Hear that? And then we're going to talk about the Rhodes has this very famous stereo pan sound where the it's called like a ping pong tremolo, and where the sound pings all the way from the left to the right. So if you have stereo headphones on and you're listening to this video, you should be able to hear that effect. And if I crank the depth up, hear that? It's way too much when I crank it up, but I'm using that effect at probably about a 30% depth and a very low rate, because when you turn it up, it's a really cool sound, but it's not the Redbird sound, and so we want it dialed back to 10 or 20% on the rate. Hear that? So it's moving, but it's not like overwhelming. And then the other thing that you can hear in Peter's tone is a phaser. And I just grabbed, when I was going through the different phasers, I liked phaser number 2. The depth is a little less than halfway, and the speed is about, 30%. So this is without the phaser. And so even with just the panning tremolo, I think that's enough to get the sound, but I also, at least in the one that we're doing, heard kind of a phaser sound on it. So here's with the phaser, just so you can hear the difference. And it's really subtle. It's just a little more kind of motion on the sound. And if I crank it, you can really start to hear what it is. Here's that like soupy, watery, which again is like a little too much 1970s, what am I listening to? So we're gonna dial that back, and I think the name of the game here is subtle. So it's slow and the depth is a little less than half. And Peter's really good at these kind of slightly offbeat electric piano sounds. I really love them. They have a ton of texture to them. And they're really, this is how Peter is as a player. He doesn't, I don't think he has like the high flying solo chops to like, he does okay there, but like he really shines as a texture guy, and he's such a big part of the sound of the band because of his ability to just be back there like, you know, doing that kind of stuff, these rhythmic patterns with these sounds that have so much depth to them. And that really, in a jam band context, is so valuable. So always think about that as a player, is how you can create texture, especially if you're backing a really good soloist or somebody who is doing that high flying work. And we all love doing it ourselves as keyboardists. I don't think I'm that strong at it either, but you know, I think there's so much to add as a texture player, because, you know, a screaming guitar solo with nothing under it is, you know, not nearly as good as the full effect. And so that's what we're talking about. All right, now that we've talked about the sound, now that we gave the people who were here just for the riff, they got the riff, let's do the riff one more time and talk about the structure of the song, because there's a little bit more that we have to get through to be able to play the whole song. So here's that riff again. And this is where he sings right over it. Red bird singing. And Rick will emphasize that little E flat D down. I think I haven't practiced it enough to be able to sing it and keep up that full riff. It sounds like he's able to, which is, I think, should be your goal if you want to play this song really well. But you can also kind of fudge it like I was just doing. So anyways, you get through that verse. Right back, don't get tired now. You can almost touch the light. Right back, don't stop singing your song. Fly for tomorrow, tonight. So that's the chorus structure, and the chorus there, it leads in with an E flat major chord coming out of the verse. So it's like, take more than a phone call. Da, 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 da. So we're on the F chord at the end of that, and then we're going E flat, right back. And that first chord that I'm hitting right now of the chorus is a G minor chord. So I got G with my left hand, and then D, G, B flat with my right, and then an F major chord. Don't get, so F with my left, C, F, A with my right, and then C minor, tired now. So C with my left, and then C, E flat, G. And then I think you can turn it around with a D. Back to the G minor. So don't worry about that D. It's just really quick if you're going to do right back, don't get tired now. You will almost touch the light. So the second time through we go G minor, F, C major. So instead of an E flat we have E natural. C, G, and then we go back to stops, back to the C minor the third time, and then it turns back to the verse on an F chord. Fly towards tomorrow, tonight, and then we're back into the structure we know. That holds through again, and we go through the chorus again. The light, C major. Don't stop singing your song. Fly towards tomorrow, that overlapping vocal part is a separate chord progression, and we'll get into that now. So that's where we pivot to being C major, and this is what's going to carry us through the jam. So we're going C major, which we've already talked about. So C with my left hand, G, C, E. B flat major, so B flat with my left, and then F, B flat, D, and then G minor. We've talked a few times about sort of jam band catnip type stuff, and this is very much that, and this is why this leads into the jam. It's what you want to be thinking about soloing on here is we have that B flat in play, so we have the C major, B flat, and G minor. So you see that note B flat here, which means that our scale here is a C Mixolydian scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. Which you can just hear from the sound of playing around on it. It's jam band music. It's the Grateful Dead. It's Mixolydian mode is like where so much of this music lives. And it's a wonderful scale. And so this chord progression is built to live there. So now that we're jamming, why don't we pull up the Redbird from September of 24, I think it's September 21st, 24, and play along with it. It's got about a 20-minute jam, so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how that's structured and how we as keyboardists can support this kind of music and navigate a really phenomenal band improvising at a high level and doing really cool texture work and stuff like that. So I'm going to reset the tech, and I will see you all on the other side. Okay, so we've got September 21st, 2024, Redbird pulled up. We're going to start with that riff that we already talked about, play through the full strong song structure, and then we're going to get into the jam. So let's do it. There's that G minor chord and then that F. Again, Peter varies it a little bit here and there, so we were just getting the gist of it. You may tweak it a little bit depending on how you like to play or what falls under your hands. What you do is you know, when you're figuring stuff like this out, you can fish around, figure out what key it's in, sort of what sharps and flats are in play. If you figure out the chords, then you can break it down really slowly to figure out what the little intricacies of the riff itself are. So there's the G minor chord, the F chord, and then we go back to the C chord, C minor.
Softer than a daydream on a summer night.
So you always have that little E flat D to lead into it. G minor, F to C minor, G minor, F, C major, G minor, F, C minor. And then we go to an F chord and turn it around. And we go back to the riff. Hear that the riff when Peter has to sing, he's not keeping that whole riff, he's kind of hinting at it and playing bits of it, and That's something that you can work on as a player when you have to sing or things like that, is that triage process of how do I keep the vibe of this even if I can't physically get my brain to do all these things at the same time. You can still keep the sound and it'll work really well.
It'll take more than a phone call to get a feeling fine.
We're gonna go back to the chorus. G minor, F, C minor. G minor, F, C major. G minor, F, C minor. Go back to F. And then we come back around the chorus again. C major. Back to the riff.
How does it feel to take a
Now we're just doing the chords really light.
play
You can
around
arpeggiate them.
sleeping
E flat major, G minor,
when it's time for a bird to fly.
F. And now we're going into that third pattern.
When it's
C,
time for a bird to fly. When it's
B
time for a
flat,
bird to fly.
G minor.
Time for a
And this is going to carry us the rest of the way.
bird to fly. Time for
Flat, G minor.
time for a bird to fly. When it's time for a bird to fly. Time for a bird to fly.
And I wouldn't do anything fancy with these chords. I'm just kind of counting with my hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just to keep them moving. Now we're starting to settle into this being a jam built on these chords. B flat major, G minor, C. So now with this chord pattern, we're really firmly in that Mixolydian sort of vibe. So Rick is making that out of C, B flat, and D. And he's just, it's all Mixolydian scale. On those chords right now. Peter's still on the electric piano. I'm waiting to hear him shift, and then I'll probably jump over onto a acoustic piano with him. I've got dogs barking upstairs. I don't know if you can hear it. And the way that Goose usually jams is they have this sort of the kickoff pattern, which is what this is, and then they're gonna at some point find a escape hatch and go somewhere different. And we'll just follow when they do. I haven't really listened to this one, so we'll explore it together. So my left hand is keeping that chord structure, so I know where I am. My right hand, I'm grabbing like shapes out of that Mixolydian a little more. Now we're getting a little more spacious, so I might just kind of sit on C. And this is that spot where you can almost hear it. You're not sure if it's major or minor right now. It has maybe a little bit of a minor vibe, not necessarily. But if you're not sure, avoid the third. So I'm playing C and G primarily here. And I'm not playing E because if you throw out an E flat, then you're going to lead it into this really different place. And the ambiguity is really engaging for a listener. if I hit the E, then it's really clearly bright and happy Mixolydian. I really like the ambiguity. So when you can do root and fifth, when you're especially parked on one chord like this, just give it a little space to feel open, and that space that you can make can be really useful for also creating an opening for the other players. Say that your bass player or your guitarist wants to throw out that E flat and be like, hey, we're in C minor now. You've given them room to do that because you're not conflicting with them by playing the third. So as a keyboard player, you have this really nice opportunity to leave that space. Peter's doing synth pads right now. I'm going to stay on the electric piano for the moment. And now Rick's throwing out that E natural, so it gives us much more of that sort of C major with the Mixolydian, that Mixolydian vibe. You can lean into that a little harder. When you hear that sort of more affirmed by another player, you're like, okay, now we're going to dig into that. Oh, there's the acoustic piano. I'm going to move over too. And nothing has really changed. We're sort of settling in as just a C, one chord jam for the moment. And rather than just playing a C chord over and over, what I'm doing is I'm using the notes of that Mixolydian scale, which is all the white keys except the B flat, and I'm making shapes out of it. And there's a bit of a trial and error to learning how to do that well, but it allows you to really comp the chords in a really interesting way, where it's like clearly we're in C, but I have all these different colors. I can do this really sparse, like I can do this like slightly mysterious. Do you hear the tension in that? But it's all consonant with what's happening, or harmonious with what's happening. So then you can sort of look at the different shades that come out as you try different permutations, especially in a one chord jam. I just hit B natural by accident. It sounds like garbage, but it goes by quick. As they say when you're playing, jazz or things like that, improvised music, you're always a half step away from salvation. Not sure what my dogs are barking at upstairs. Again, we're still in just C with that Mixolydian. You can also hear a lot of how Peter's a textural player, because if you want to get cutesy as a piano player, like that stuff it technically works, but it really is not the vibe here. What you're going for is, especially on one chord, is just building these textures. And then you're just trying to stay open and listen for the opening to how we're going to move forward. You hear the rhythm has really changed. You can almost hear this chord pattern merging. I'm hearing it going from like C down to the B flat. now you can almost call back to the chord structure we started with, C, B flat, and G minor. You probably don't want to be too on the nose with it, but I'm kind of hinting at it. Still C Mixolydian. Everybody listening is how you build this stuff in real time. You know, Cotter's paying attention and picked up on that sort of window to bring it up a little bit. Now you hear what Rick's doing. He's sort of using that G, B flat, C, which really brings in a little bit more of a minor vibe. Even though I think we're still very firmly in C Mixolydian. So I'm just using the C Mixolydian still. I'm just trying to pick up on what Rick was doing. Sometimes if everybody settles into a riff like that, then that can lead the way to new ideas or opening modulations. Speaking of, you can hear it. Trevor settled in on G. Now we're in G minor because of Rick leading that with that G and the B flat. So, and we're using the same set of notes as the C Mixolydian, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat. But now we're framed around G. G is our center point. So I'm letting my left hand float on G, and I'm using G minor ideas. But what's cool about it is it's the same set of notes, and if you change what your reference point is, then you can get a completely different sound. Now they've settled into a more formal G minor, so it says an E flat too. And they love doing this kind of move. E flat, D, G minor. They love that flat 6, E flat down to D. Chord pattern that we found here is G minor, E flat major, D. And that F sharp in the D gives you this harmonic minor. It makes it kind of spooky sounding. So you hear that? That's what they're playing on. So Rick's just coming up that G minor scale. And that, again, giving a riff like that gives everybody else an anchor point. That's G, A, B flat, C. Like any great band like this, you know, they're not reinventing the wheel. All these sounds, we all know them, but it's really having the discretion and the taste to deploy them well, and they're really emotionally engaging storytelling way, that's what makes this music go. And so something to think about as you try all these different sort of theoretical ideas is like, all right, what's pulling the story forward? What's making this jam elevate, escalate, higher and higher, bringing the energy up? So now you find a simple idea, and what they're amazing at is starting from a pretty simple place and then just being able to push it higher and higher every time they come around. And Rick is amazing at that. And like the way I up my intensity level sometimes is throwing those kind of flurries or arpeggios in or just getting busier. I'm saving the high registers for when I need them if it's really going to take off. Then you can go, but we're nowhere near there yet. So remember to save dry powder when you're jamming. Because there's nothing worse than using your whole bag of tricks right off the bat and then you got nothing. So just pro tip is start small, leave yourself room to go big. Now they're getting bigger. And you can hear it, they've settled into staying on that G minor. Still G minor. Now we go to the E flat and then the D. Now I'm going higher because this is how you keep squeezing more out of a piano. If you're getting really busy, those chromatics are great because they're inherently tense. But if you do go chromatic and go exploring, try really hard to stick the landing because it really matters. Hear that? I like these brackets where I have the D under my hands. I'm using G and A in the middle. Oh, now we're getting quiet. And we're kind of in the ending sequence now, where everybody's still hanging on to that progression, but it's like, all right, we took that up, and I think we're done. Now you give it some space, maybe something new will come. Maybe it's time for set break. I don't know. And there you go. Rick led the ending. You can see it on the little video. I'm not sure what side of me it's on. I think they're usually over there. But Rick leads it, and then everybody's done. And it's wonderful. So that is Redbird plus a lot of Mixolydian improvisation talk. As they say, when life gives you goo, make goominade. I hope you guys enjoyed that lesson. It is always an honor and a privilege to be here helping you on your musical journey. I hope you're out there playing. Check the description to learn more about what I'm up to and my band. I have a tip jar. I've been working on some original music. I think it's slated for the spring probably. I'm excited about it. I'm always trying to push new projects forward. I hope that you are able to have music in your life in whatever way works for you. Yeah, I know life is hectic and it can be really hard to fit this stuff in. So I'm really glad that you're finding some time to do it because this is what makes me go as a human. And I'm really glad that I think you're one of us if you're here too. So let's do it again real soon. Happy holidays. Have a wonderful New Year. Maybe I'll see some of you guys at MSG. I'm going to be there on the 29th. If you do see me, flag me down and say hi. Peace out, y'all. And let's do it again.